Hello, you are welcome to Living a Full Life Forum. I'm Dr. Violet Kayom. I do kindly request you to subscribe to our channel because it has a lot of life-giving information and you will not regret it. Please do comment and like it, and we'll be very grateful to receive your feedback. Our topic for discussion today is healing from rejection. Rejection, by definition, is basically the act of refusing to accept, use, or believe in something or someone. And in the social cycles, it's basically some form of social exclusion. You see, um, acceptance, okay, and social connections is something that is key to humanity. So meaning rejection touches the essence, okay, of humanity, and so it's a very vital topic. We see over years as groups migrated, different ethnic groups migrating from one region to another, one of the things that preserved them, one of the things that protected them from extinction and from, being erased because of the attacks from other tribal groups was the social connections. So they needed to be together. And even when they reached places, they had to be accepted, okay, for them to survive. So meaning, when we look at a topic like rejection, we are touching the essence of humanity because our desire for acceptance and social connections is an innate need. Okay, and so if rejection occurs, it means it indents our identity. It touches the core of us, our self-worth, our value, and that is something that is very important. And if not dealt with, it can be very detrimental to us. What is very unfortunate about life is that most times we are rejected for things we don't even have control over. Someone rejects you for your color, for your race, for this and the other, and then you take the blame on yourself. That saddens it even more because most times you're not rejected necessarily because you are the one to blame, but it's because the other person has another preference. Okay, if you have two, let's say two machines that have to fit together, in a neat way, for them to fit together, they have to be the right size. If one size is bigger than the other and the fit is not good, then automatically the machine will not function well. And so it's not like, this or the other part of the machine is to blame. It's just that they did not get the right sizes. So the fit is loose. And that is what happens with rejection, especially in relationships. So many times we carry blames and, we look into all the possibilities, especially the negative possibilities on our side without, minding that the other person could actually be the one to blame. I mean, someone may just not prefer you, may not want this and the other about you, and doesn't mean that you are wrong. It's just that they have something else they prefer, and we cannot control that. I mean, if you come to me and I have my basket of oranges, which I'm selling, and you want apples, I mean, I don't have the apples to give you, I have the oranges. And so if you start blaming me for not having apples, then it is very unfortunate because I don't have, someone else needs the oranges. If you need the apples, the best for me to do is not to blame myself for not having what you need, but to direct you, allow you to go to someone else, and for you not to blame me because someone else will come and will want my oranges. So that is exactly how it plays, with the issue of rejection. And even when it seems to hold some water, that you've been rejected because of this and that, we need to always differentiate that there is your person, your self-value and self-worth, and then the other things that you do or the circumstance. So there's a differentiation there. So many times we are not really rejected as us, the person of you, but your opinions may be rejected. Okay, you may say this and the other, and then the person says no, and then if you do not have the emotional maturity to handle rejection, you end up feeling that you're being rejected just because your opinion is different from the other person. Sometimes it's just the circumstance, and then sometimes it's that difference, in the fit or unfit, situation. So many times we carry on ourselves a lot of rejection which are not called for, and so we have to fight this. And one thing we have to know that on a day-to-day basis, there will always be, situations, that cause rejection. You may ask for this, you may ask for the other, and the person will say no. And then you feel offended, you feel rejected. You may apply for a job and then you're not called for the interview, or you do the interview and you're not called for the job. So now you have to deal with that rejection. Okay? A friend may invite every other person for that party and fail to invite you. And so you feel offended, you feel rejected. Okay? I mean, you may go for one date and then you're expecting another one with your potential boyfriend or girlfriend. Before long, they're saying no to the second request. So all that happens. So we need to learn that rejection occurs on a day-to-day basis and we need to manage it. Now the problem comes when we can't manage. We seem to be overly, emotional when an answer is no. And we allow it, to go overboard. It affects our behavior. And then we guard ourselves so much now, consciously and intentionally, against any further rejection. Now, if you live life extremely guarded, then you miss out a lot, because meaning you're spending too much energy on guarding instead of being creative and going out there. Okay? And so that is the essence of our discussion today. And that is called rejection sensitivity. That high tendency, to feeling excessive pain and, negative emotions when the answer has been no, when things haven't gone your way. So that means that there is a deep root of rejection that you have that has to be dealt with, because in life you always face situations that that are potential rejections, and we need to know how to deal with it. Okay, so we are going to discuss the causes of rejection as our first part of the discussion after that preamble. Okay, so number one, rejection can actually start in the unborn child, the child who is in the mother's womb. And that is in line with what we call the implicit memory. Okay, that when a child is unborn, the child is able to feel the emotions of the surrounding, and especially the emotions of the mother. So meaning if a mother gets pregnant and maybe she's not prepared for it, and she starts harboring feelings of anger, of fear, of shame, that is already rejection at work. A few days ago, a young lady came to me and told me that, I've been using a lot of emergency pills, and now suddenly I tested yesterday and, behold, I'm pregnant. And I went like, wow, congratulations. And she said that, no, I'm not ready for that. I'm like, whoa, the next president is about to come, and I booked to be the godmother. So I was just trying to encourage her, because I know that the moment those feelings start, then the unborn child will start picking that, those emotions, and before long, they form in the implicit, memory of the child. Okay, so meaning if a man impregnates a woman and abandons her, okay, and leaves her, that rejection is already felt in the unborn child. And then this child may grow up and in the physical may never really experience, rejection, and yet will have symptoms and signs of rejection. That is the implicit memory at work. So we have to be very careful when it comes to, pregnancy, childbearing, the kind of emotions that we harbor, if we want to protect our children from rejection. Number two, childhood experiences at family level. Childhood experiences are especially important because children have a primitive way of processing emotions. So even when they're not to blame for some things, they carry on, the weight of the world whenever something doesn't go very well in the family, just because of that problem, with the immaturity, okay, in the processing of emotions. So we have children who go through families where they face a lot of, violence, okay? There's a lot of harsh treatment and excessive criticism by the parents or the guardians. So such a child will always feel like they're deficient. They're always being criticized. They're always being treated harshly. So they will not, they will feel rejected because they feel like whatever they put in is never appreciated. And so their self-worth goes down. So they devalue themselves. Now that is something that is very traumatic, and it creates a deep root of rejection, which manifests in the adult life. Other situations are dysfunctional family setups. You find that where there is polygamy, There's a lot of violence in the home, sexual harassment. It means the child is not having their position as a child in that home. Many times they have to take up roles which are not meant for children. For instance, a lady was sharing how she faced, sexual abuse by the father. And she felt very rejected because this is the father who rejected her as a child and took her as a mistress. And what was worse is that even the mother knew what was happening and other relatives knew, but they still could not come to help her. So that is a very deep root of rejection that has to be dealt with, okay? Other things like, parental loss. A lady was explaining to me how both parents died when she was young, and then she was taken over, by relatives. She would stay in this home and the other home. And so that, change from one home to another exposed her to a lot of, harsh treatment here and there. And she remembers one word that the auntie said, that, you just do it always wrong and you'll never amount to anything. And she fought through her life, against that statement. But it caught up with her because she didn't really heal from that. She was just doing everything in a manual way. That is why healing is very important. And so when she got married, before long, she had issues with her husband, and indeed the husband rejected her. So you find that rejection can end up being a spiral if it's not attended to, okay? Yes, so other things are childhood experiences at the society level, the social experiences that children go through. In situations where there's a lot of bullying and teasing, which occurs in some schools or in some, children's groups, it can really cause a lot of rejection. I remember a young lady telling me, when they moved from their country to, abroad, they went abroad, and here she was in a different society altogether. Most of the children were white. She was black, and so she was teased and bullied for her black color, for her hair. You know how our African hair can be, for her height, for her weight, everything. She said basically everything about her was a point of discussion and a point of laughter to others. And so it created a lot of rejection in her that caused her to fight extremely, hard in life and develop this perfectionism, syndrome, which in the long run may not really be helpful, okay? Other things like peer pressure and all that, all those can end up causing a lot of rejection in us. Other life experiences as we grow up, for instance, if you're faced with divorce, marital separation, family, separation, abandonment in a relationship, that can cut deep because you gave out your heart to someone and here they are just letting you be and, devaluing you, putting you down there. So you can feel a lot of rejection. And if not dealt with, it can lead into a spiral of other emotional and social problems that we are going to look at. Sometimes it's to do with, the life experience is to do with repeated losses. If you've repeatedly applied for an interview and not gone through, you've repeatedly started a business and not, broken through. If you have applied for grants, I remember a situation where I applied for, multiple grants, like 3 in a row, and every answer was no, no, no. I mean, I didn't have the emotional energy to apply for the next one until some time really of recovery. So all those can cause a lot of rejection, okay? You wanted this course, you wanted to do this course while at school, and before long, they didn't give you your first choice, they didn't give the second choice, and here you are doing something that you didn't really plan for. All that can cause rejection, and they have to be dealt with. And then finally, rejection can actually be genetic. There can be genetic predisposition. Studies have shown that there's some families where the problem is rejection. When you look back into the ancestry, it's like they've battled rejection all through. So there seems to be that extreme sensitivity, to negative situations that puts them into rejection mode. And then, of course, there's the inheritance from family. You can actually inherit some of the negative emotions from your parents or grandparents. Looking at my situation, I've told you before, if you've looked at other videos, that I grew up in a polygamous family. And now I felt, as a child, there are different ways you will look at situations and you process them. you know, as it is. So I always wondered why my mother, being a first wife, did not remain as the only wife of my father. And so I took it upon myself, to have this perspective that I think my mother was not good enough. Unfortunately, my nice mother was not good enough for my father. That is why my father went out to get my stepmother. And then in my young mind, I also, convinced myself or processed that emotion that even as the children were not good enough for daddy, were not good enough, and that is why he had to go and get another family. And so I always battled with that, the self-worth. So we are not good enough. Our family is not good enough, and that is why daddy had to go to get another family. Now, so I inherited the pain of my mother. And then with my misinterpretation of the situation, I bore a lot of that rejection. And so it made me get coping behaviors that were unhealthy to some degree, which could protect me at that point, but later on, there were the reasons, for many of the emotional issues I was facing. So I had a lot of anger, and I always tried to prove a point that, what, they thought we are not worthy, they thought we are of less value, but I'm going to prove that we are actually valuable, that we have a lot of worth. So everything was in fighting mode. The achievement and all that was always to prove a point. Now, you can't always live life to prove a point. To who? You break yourself for nothing. Okay, so those are some of the causes of that rejection sensitivity. Now we go to some of the signs and effects of rejection sensitivity, and we need to pay close attention because this is going to be your kind of like diagnostic tool. Scan through your life as we mentioned some of these things. If you pinpoint one or two, just know that you have to deal with a rejection in your life, a root of rejection that has to come out. Number one, people who have rejection sensitivity, people who have a root of rejection, have excessive desire to please people. Because you've been rejected in the past, you always do things, to please people. You run up and down, or you want to make everyone happy. Now that is not good. Number two, there's excessive desire to achieve. Achievement is good, but when it becomes excessive, okay, then it becomes a problem. Or when you enter a room, you always want to stand out. It's good to stand out, but when it becomes, something that, you're always obsessed with, then it's a problem. It means that you're battling some insecurities, especially rejection. Because now when you come to a room and you're dressing in this way to be seen, the hairstyle or whatever it is, just things so that you can be spotted out, then it means that you're fighting with yourself. There's some internal thing about you. And the problem with when you're rejected by others, you end up also rejecting yourself. There's that self-rejection that ends up coming. So you don't accept yourself, and so you do all these things to try to prove a point. That excessive desire for approval and validation. People always have to tell you that, oh, you're good, you're nice, and all that. You don't have to live with that if you're secure. If you always need validation from outside to feel comfortable, then you are dealing with rejection. Other people end up going the other way. They withdraw socially. So social withdrawal is actually a sign of rejection. You end up lacking trust. You don't want to form close relationships for fear of being rejected in future. Now, you see, we are social beings, and so some of the best things you acquire in life are through your social connections. Your destiny helpers are hidden in your social connections. Your cheerers in life, your promoters in life, all those are hidden in your social connections. So if you keep people away all the time, then it means that you're going to miss out a lot on life, and it may limit your life's potential. I remember a friend of mine who made a statement that brought me back, to my senses. We were friends, but I would do things here and they would say things here and there because I just didn't want too much, closeness. I wanted a bit of a distance and all that. But he was a well-meaning friend, and he had actually come to, to help me. So he one time told me that, Violet, I know you're doing all you can to keep me away. You're doing all you can to make me angry, saying all these words and that. But let me tell you, I'm here to stay as long as I still have the assignment to complete in your life. So whatever you do, you're not going to drive me away. So it made me think through that, we are always work in progress. So that insecurity seems to be raising its head, so I really need to deal with it again. Another issue with a sign and an effect, of rejection is you end up having relationship instability. That constant desire for approval and validation can end up weighing heavily on your spouse, on your relatives, on your friends, okay? Because it becomes big work for them. It's very taxing, okay? And then it ends up leading into your self, fulfilling prophecy of rejection, because no one wants to hold that weight of you to keep you in a certain way. People have better things to do about life, and before long, what you didn't want to happen can actually happen, that same rejection, because people will get tired. There are issues of trust also. You find that some people battle, trusting. Oh, maybe he's going away. Oh, maybe he has delayed, now he has gotten someone. Oh, this, you can't live your life, with lack of trust. We have to trust as long as we're in a relationship. Not that we trust blindly, but some degree of trust is very essential to keep a relationship, a healthy, and to keep yourself healthy. Okay? Some people end up coming out of relationships prematurely. The moment they see a little red flag that may not even be a red flag per se, it may be something tending to, but which can be worked on, they jump out of the relationship. Why? Because they fear being hurt. I remember a cousin of mine saying that, the moment I saw my husband behaving like the way my father treated my mother, I quickly ran out of the relationship. And I was like, you didn't even give him a chance, to work out this. He said, I cannot allow to be treated like the way I saw it happen to my mother. So that was just a sign of rejection that she picked from her mother, and she didn't heal from it. And now this innocent man doing something that maybe wasn't even meant to break the relationship ends up suffering this breakage of a relationship. Other thing, emotional dysregulation. People who have a lot of rejection roots, anger, shame, fear, low self-esteem, low mood, all those are major issues that we end up going into. Then some people end up into, perverted behaviors, drug abuse, extreme peer groups, just to prove a point, or just to, to kind of like reduce the pain, especially when they're using those drugs, and yet it's not taking away the problem. And then, of course, finally, when you don't deal with that root of rejection, just know it limits your full life's potential, okay? It will make you lose opportunities for love because you fear to love again. It makes you lose opportunities to try another business venture because you fear the failure you went through and the pain you had to go through. So meaning you can never really have, financial breakthrough. Most of the great and mighty men of the land who have succeeded in business or other areas have failed many times. And so they've had to deal with rejection. In life, if we can't deal with, shame, if we can't handle reproach, if we can't handle all these, failures in life, it becomes very difficult to progress, okay? And rejection brings that a lot, okay? So that fear of shame, of reproach, what will they say, and the other may end up stopping you from doing something which you ought to have done in order to improve your life. So how can we heal? We have to heal from this pit of hell, okay? Number one, acknowledge the symptoms. We've talked about them, the symptoms and signs and the effects. Then go through some of the pains, okay? We've talked about the causes. You may identify with one or two of them, okay? If you put your finger to one or two of them, make sure you start working on it, okay? So acknowledge the pain you've gone through, acknowledge the rejection you've gone through, feel the pain, and accept that indeed you have suffered rejection, okay? Acknowledgement is the first key in healing, because otherwise we keep covering everything up and say we have forgotten our past, yet actually our past is still controlling us. Number one, acknowledge that. Number two, you're going to go through a process of now, healing from that pain, and that is by reliving the experiences. You write down all the experiences you remember that caused pain, the pain of rejection. Write them down and then start journaling them. Sometimes you may not even remember some of the issues you've gone through because of the bearing of those negative emotions in your subconscious. So it may help to ask your parents or ask guardians or other people who are around you as you grew up. or as the circumstances, surrounding your conception and the pregnancy of your mother, any form of rejection, and write those stories, write them, relieve those emotions and let them be. Number 3, you're going to reframe the perspective, okay? Because like I said before, sometimes someone actually doesn't reject you, they reject your opinion or the circumstance, okay? So now you have to separate yourself, okay, from whatever rejection it is. Look at you as, okay, my self-worth, my value is intact. I am, my identity is intact, but maybe they rejected me because of this and that. For instance, my situation when I was growing up, the way I took it that, oh, we were not good enough for my dad, that's why he had to get another family. So with time, I had to realize that, okay, there was cultural pressure, okay? All my uncles and my forefathers had practiced polygamy, so there was that cultural pressure. So it's not that he rejected me or rejected us as a family, it's just the culture, that took the upper hand. So you need to depersonalize, separate your personality from all these rejections. Number 2, look at other possible explanations as you reframe your perspective. I mean, sometimes you may not get a job because there are people who are more qualified than you. And sometimes it may be that, the person who rejects you prefers something else. Once the apple, you have the orange. So there's really nothing, there's no big deal in that. It's just that there was no good fit. So you cannot change someone's preference. Someone prefers something else. So allow them to move on, and then know that for you as someone else will prefer you because you will have the ingredients that they need, okay? The other thing under reframing the perspective is that sometimes rejection is actually a redirection. It will push you to the right direction. Sometimes it will make you now do a better job in the next interview or prepare better, as maybe if you've written an article and it has been rejected, so you prepare it better, so it may be redirection. Number 4 in our process, number 1, we said acknowledge the pain. Number 2, do the journaling, relieve, the pain and process it. Number 3, we said reframe the perspective. Now, number 4, start creating. Make an effort to create healthy relationships by creating healthy boundaries. Start to love again. Cultivate trust again, And then, number 5, move forward. You have to move forward. You have to know that life will not depend on your past. So heal from your past. Stop ruminating, thinking negatively about all the past pains you've gone through. Stop ruminating and heal, and then stop dwelling on the past. And hey girl, hey my dear, you are going to make it. So sometimes the rejection we go through, yes, we don't call for them, but it's just that we are not the fit for the person or for the situation, and it's directing us to something better. Thank you for being part of Living a Full Life Forum. Please do subscribe and share with others, and I wish you all the best. Please watch out for our other videos that we are putting across. Thank you.